You're listening to the Home Staging Show podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Lin. This is a show where we talk about all things real estate, home staging, and selling a home to live and to sell. Welcome back to season 9. This is episode 4. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Home Staging Show. So on today's episode, I'm interviewing Kelly Williams, who has been a longtime stager since 2003. And she's now a real estate agent for the past 6 years. For many years, she has mentored many new stagers when they first graduated from their home staging training program. She was voted the CSP Mentor of the Year in 2006. In 2013, she co-authored the best-selling book, Home Staging Secrets. She was featured on an episode of By Me on HGTV, and interviewed by both the National Post and Toronto Sun. Combined with her home staging expertise, she's able to service her real estate clients and help them find or sell their homes. I'm really excited about interviewing today because she's just a wealth of knowledge. I think because of having now worked as a home stager and both as a real estate agent, it really enriches her expertise to see what today's buyers and sellers are looking for. So I hope you like today's episode, and let's start the show. So Kelly, thank you so much for coming on this show. So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get into real estate?
Oh, first, thanks you, Cindy, for having me on your show. I was very excited about it. So a bit about my background. I went to college for interior decorating and received my honors diploma. And it was during when I was taking my business class that one of the instructors invited somebody in to talk to us about where they took their interior decorating business. It was at that point he had just taken the first on stage, and he said, "This is what I want to do. I want to stage houses." And so I thought, this sounds pretty cool. So I looked it up and I took the CSP course. Actually, it was ASP at that time. And then Christine Ray went out on her own and started the CSP course. And that was way back in 2003. And that's when I started my staging company of Creative Touch Interiors. And back then, staging wasn't really heard of. Nobody really knew what staging was. It was a really big sell for a number of years, trying to explain to people what it was. So the staging afforded me the flexibility to run in my own business and still be able to be at my children's school and sporting events. And that was pretty important to me because I became a single parent to 3 teenagers in 2006. So I needed to be here, there, and everywhere. I started mentoring with the CSP training company back in 2006 and earned their first mentor award that year. So that was pretty exciting. I enjoyed working with the new stagers and I met some great people, and that's sort of how I built my team with some of them. In 2013, all my children were now grown and out at university or college. So that's when I made the leap into real estate. I knew that selling real estate was going to require a lot of hours, evenings and weekends. And that I now had since I was an empty nester.
That's very cool. And I had no idea you have all this going on.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it was.
And so I actually have been wanting you to bring you on this show for a long time because I always want to interview someone with both the real estate agent's perspective and also the stager's perspective. So even though you're working as a real estate agent, do you still stage properties that you're selling? And how do you balance between the two?
I do staging, not as much. I make sure my properties are staged for sure. But when I moved from Toronto, which is about an hour away from the Kitchener-Waterloo area, I was concentrating more on the real estate aspect out here in the KW area. And so I do some occasional staging for an agent or two in my office or the consultations for them. But most of my stagings, if I do any, are with probably a handful of realtors that I worked with since I began my business. So I don't do a lot of stagings. So it's only for a few that I actually stage. So because I have just a handful of agents in Toronto that I work with, it's easy to manage doing the real estate and the staging. If I was working with the same number of real estate agents that I did when I was in Toronto, it would be pretty hard to do. But this way I can do both.
So this is my question, I guess. I know I'm jumping out of order a little bit, so don't worry. So in your opinion, Because I know a lot of real estate agents, they also want to take on the staging. In your opinion, can that be done? Or what recommendation would you have for agents who also want to do staging?
I think what made it easier for me was in the sense that I already had a staging business and I wasn't learning two businesses at the same time. And I also, when I started with real estate, you can't have the same level in staging as you do in real estate and vice versa. One has to give unless you actually have a team that, they just do the staging part and you just, are concentrating on your real estate, on how busy you are. When you're really busy, having all your buyers and doing your listings to try and, if it's just for yourself, you could do it, but not if it's, you're going to be doing it for other people. You'd never be able to start both new businesses or run both businesses efficiently that way, I believe.
And then do you work with both buyers and sellers?
I do. I work with, my business right now probably is more with buyers than with sellers. However, that always changes, right? All of a sudden you could be more listings than you are buyers, and then it switches the other way, and then you get more buyers than you have listings. It's never the same.
So how does being a stager prepare you for working with buyers and sellers?
The benefit is that because I have a design background, so when we're walking through, if I'm working with the seller, when I'm able to, help them saying these are, we have to change up some colors and, these are things that we need to do in your home to get it, to sell properly and that type of thing. And when I'm working with the buyer, we can walk through the houses and, sometimes people, they can't see what's in front of them. I can help them say, well, this will, set up with furniture placement, or we can change your color, or just add this, or, they have a lot of questions on things that they can't see, and I can help them. I can walk through them because I have that decorating background.
And has being a real estate agent changed how you think about home staging?
Oh, no, because I completely believe in home staging and making sure that the properties show the best that they can. It doesn't help your seller if you're not staging the property. Now, there are some properties that require very minimal, and that's just saying, we just need to move this table out. We just put in a new clean duvet cover, but they live very, well. They don't have a lot of stuff, and they're not pack rats, and so.
Right. Yeah, those are difficult properties when the clients have a lot of stuff to work with.
Yes. With the staging background and doing consultations now for 16 years, speaking with the seller is very easy to be able to explain to them, like, why are we doing it? What are the buyers looking for? It's an easy conversation to have with them and giving them reasons why. I don't ever say, well, you have to give, just do this. Everybody has why are we doing that? And can't, we just leave it this way.
Right.
Now we want to open up the room, or, and explaining it without, and I think it works well that way because they're able to, it's not just a do this, it's a answer the question and reason why.
Right. And so what is your local real estate market like?
Kitchener-Waterloo is a great market here. Our property prices are lower than what is Toronto, so we're very affordable, which is what we want, especially for first-time buyers, right? And we have a lot of people that have moved out from the Toronto area out to the Kitchener-Waterloo area just because you get more house for your dollar, more condo for your dollar, right? And you're able to, as I say, the first-time home buyer has a better chance of finding something and getting into something here than something that's in the Toronto area.
Right. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that it's really easy to be a real estate agent. So can you share a little bit about your process? Like, how do you market to get new listings and new clients?
Well, okay. So real estate is, trying to find clients is really difficult. And so some people, there's cold calling. I'm not a big cold caller, so I like to door knock. I get referrals So from past clients. So that's another nice warm lead. I mean, you can do what you call as buying leads, which is, you pay for leads in internet or you see little ads that go on, and then if you click on it, then you can see some houses, and then it goes to a website. I don't do that. That's not in my budget. So pretty much I do open houses, door knocking, and referral business.
That's actually really interesting because when I was working as a buyer's agent, I did a lot of cold calls, but I was a bit shy to door knock. So you found that door knocking has been beneficial for your business.
Yeah. And I'm more comfortable actually door knocking. And most times I'm door knocking, just to, it's easy. It's a warmer call just to tell them what's happening in the neighborhood. Have they, if they'd like to have their home. If they thought about selling, then maybe they'd like to have a consult, just to find out what the market value of their home is. It's not most people too are pretty nice when you're knocking on the door and just saying hello.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
I don't find a lot of people hard to deal with at the door. And it could be like, no, we're not selling, and that's fine. Because I'm not asking to, I just want to let you know I'm having an open house. You might have somebody who wants to move in the neighborhood, So I don't take it. That's right. It's very hard. Sometimes it's hard to get out of the car and make that first knock on that first door. But once you knock on that first door, then you just keep going, and then your day goes.
That's amazing. So when you're door knocking, what kind of process do you have to prepare for door knocks? Because you probably have researched the neighborhoods first, right? Before you go on knock on people's doors.
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes you're knocking on the door because you have a listing, right? So you've got a listing coming up, so you're knocking on the door and you're letting the neighbors know, because they might have friends or family that are looking to move in the neighborhood. So you're giving them a heads up, hey, just down the street, you've got this new listing. Pick your neighbors, right? What a great idea that you've got somebody that you want in, and instead of somebody that you don't know. So that's pretty easy to do. And then you're getting people to be able to, who know about your open house, and you're inviting them to that. And then it's the same thing, you door knock around where you've sold, and it's the same thing, just letting them know what's happening in their neighborhood.
That's very cool. And how many doors do you knock in one sitting, I guess?
Well, and you know what? It's interesting. Like every day it's a different number. You could knock on 50 doors. Typically, you do 50 doors when you're inviting somebody, to your open house type thing. So you're, across the street and up and on each side of where the home is. And then you just keep adding, right? Because if you're door knocking and doing your lead gen, then you're just doing it around that property.
And I'm curious, so how many people do you usually get for your first open houses?
You know what? There's absolutely no guarantee on how many people are going to come through on an open house. You think if the weather is beautiful and you're thinking I should have a lot of people in, well, that's the day that everybody's decided that they're not coming to the open house because the weather's so nice, we're going to do our own gardening.
Right, yeah.
And not to the open house. And then you're thinking, well, we're in the middle of a huge, all this rain, and then you can be really busy because people have decided, well, we can't do anything. Let's just go and, see what's out there. And then you've got really busy open houses. A lot has to do, too, with how nicely the pictures are showing on the internet and the price point. So how many buyers are out there in that price point? And, I've seen it online and are saying, well, I want to go and see it. Open house, let's go. That's
great. And so as a listing agent, do you find open house to be a very, very important marketing activity when it comes to selling the house?
Well, it is, because you want as many people to be able to see the property as possible. And some buyers, they're not working with anybody, so they don't have an agent that's making an appointment for them to come. Or they're just sort of, they're just looking, like they're just getting an idea of what's happening, and now they can come into the open house. If there's no open house and they don't have an agent that can get them in, then they're not going to be able to see it or to know. Because they could come in and they might even say, well, it doesn't work for me, but it works for somebody else.
Right.
I have a friend who's going to like this.
Right.
And they have to be able to get in, right? Because if If they're just sort of thinking about selling, they want to see what houses are looking for, sort of what they think their house is worth, so that they can go home and, well, we're going to have to fix it up, or we're going to have to paint it, or something like that. It gives them an idea, but in the same sense, they might know that they've got a friend that is looking, and they can go back and say, I just saw the perfect house for you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You never know who's going to come through. So that's very important.
Exactly.
And so what are today's buyers looking for?
Today's buyers, you sort of have different kinds. You've got ones that are looking to get the good deal because they want to fix it up, and then they might want to, flip it, or, use it as an investment property. And then you've got the buyer that wants it done, right? I don't have the time. I just want to move in. So they're looking at it as, I can just put my stuff in and that's all I have to do. So you've got the different ones. Some want the work, and the majority do not want a lot of work to have to do, especially large projects. It's one thing, they can come in and they say, well, I'm going to just change the color of this wall. It's another when they, deterrents are when everything has to be done. If you've got kitchens and bathrooms and flooring, and, if everything's looking worn and tired, it's like, okay, well, do they have the money to be able to fix it, to do the improvements of it is, or, can they live with all that carpeting that they know needs to be replaced? Can they live with it until they have the money to do that?
Right.
So,
yeah, it can be tricky. I think as a seller, you can feel a bit out of sorts because you're not sure exactly like what today's buyers are looking for. It's in a way a bit of guessing game. But I think in general, it's like to prepare the home as much as you can, probably going to really increase your probability to really sell the house successfully.
Oh, for sure. And it's interesting. I just staged a property for another agent a couple of weeks ago. And when I was doing my pickup yesterday, they had multiple offers on it. They went over asking. And before they were doing it, they had some family members and stuff saying, well, why are you staging it? Your house is lovely. She goes, because we want it to look good. People walking in and saying, this is fabulous. And so that's why they did it, and it shows when it, goes quickly and you get multiple offers. And they were on the beach when they sold their house. Like, how awesome is that?
That's awesome. That makes a great day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
exactly.
I think I was interviewing someone and I forgot who it was. I'm really bad with short-term memories. But I remember the guest saying that buyers always overestimate how much work they need to do for the home in terms of quantity of work and also the dollar sign. And so even though they might say, oh, I don't really necessarily want a turnkey property, but most people probably still prefer having a turnkey property.
They do. And as a buyers, we don't know on the price of stuff realistically. And if they're sort of looking at it saying, oh, this whole house has to be repainted, well, I'm going to have to hire somebody. So then they're putting it in at $5,000 or $10,000 for painting, where it could just be a couple $100 for paint. You know what I mean? Are they doing it themselves, or like realistically, are you really hiring somebody, or are you doing this on your own? So, one of the biggest things that it's interesting, I've had buyers where we open the door and the smell has been so bad that they didn't even want to continue. They just said, no, the smell was so bad. And it's been animals, it's been cooking smells, or even the, too strong of odor when they put in all the plugins. And people have to remember, there's people today are so
they're susceptible
to the smell, right? That they won't even walk in. It could be the nicest house in like past that door, but if that smell hits them right there, they don't even go through.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. That was the fastest little house we've seen. Turn around, lock the door.
Oh my God. I remember when I was warehouse hunting and my mom came with me, and there was one particular one. It was so cluttered on the outside. My mom was like, this will be a no. I don't even need to see it. I already know. And sure enough, I walked in with a real estate agent. I could not see the warehouse space because everything was floor to ceiling. They just had like a little walkway. in between their inventory. So I was like, I can't tell like how much stuff we can or cannot put in here. So this would be a no for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, curb appeal is very important. And, depending on what time of the year it is, like summertime and springtime and some of the fall, I mean, you actually, it's cutting the grass and raking the leaves and you've got some urns and you can plant the flowers that are, in the gardens and it looks really great. Wintertime, it depends on, you might be able to do some winter urns, but otherwise it's just making sure all your driveways and sidewalks are cleared so that no one's slipping and falling and the lights work because it gets dark so quickly that we have access and we can see the house. I had remember a friend going and seeing a house, and as soon as she saw the house, she said, "This is it." And her husband said, "Well, can we at least walk in the house?" But she just felt at home from the outside and just how it was there. And it sold her as she walked through the house. And that you've got other people that they look at the house and they nope. And you're like, "Do you only want to go in?" Nope.
They just know it's not going to work for them. Like my mom's like, nope. Yeah. I mean, if the outside is like this, you don't even need to bother. Like the inside is probably worse. And I was like, okay. And sure enough, she was right. Yeah. And a lot of it, I do feel like it's a bit like dating. It could be love at first sight. There are people who saw a house on the street. It's not even for sale. They just went on, at the door and knocking on the door and asked the homeowner if they want to sell it. And sometimes people do want to sell. So you just never know. So that's why I think you're very correct when it says curb appeal is extremely important.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was taking clients. We were doing the home inspection, and there was a knock on the door, and I answered the door, and it was somebody who said, "Can I come in? I'm interested in buying. Can I come through?" And I said, "Sorry, this isn't our house, but we're doing a home inspection," and they still wanted to come through. Well, I want to know if this is the complex I want. I said, "Sorry, it's not my house at this point in time to be able to say come through." So yeah, you do have some people that are driving around a neighborhood and they need to be in that neighborhood. So they're themselves are knocking on doors.
Yeah. I mean, some people, especially homes, I think where the school district is very good, that's very enticing for a lot of homeowners today. It can be a really bad house. I mean, I've been seeing that in real estate where the house was like, but the thing is, it was situated in a really good school district and nothing ever comes on sale in that neighborhood. So even the house is crap, but people will buy it because they can fix it. But the point is they really want their children to go to a very good school.
So exactly. And what they might be willing to put up with is the house just to be able to be into that district or that area, as you say, for the school or for, if it's work, it could be both.
Yeah.
Or they themselves were raised in that area and they want their kids to be raised in the same area.
True. That's true as well. And the thing is, like, it's always a really good investment if the location is great. If it's in a really good school district, it's only going to go up. It's never going to come down.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it so many times in the Bay Area. It's just like, oh my God, it's crazy how fast the market can go sometimes.
Oh, for sure. Certain areas of any town, they're more popular ones, and that as soon as the sign hits the lawn, next thing you know, it's just crazy busy with, people wanting to see it, because there are some people that have, they're only wanting that certain street or that certain neighborhood, and they could be on the MLS listings and they get nothing, and all of a sudden that street shows up and they're like, "Show it to me," because we've been waiting a year and a half, finally there's something on the street. Let's make it happen.
Wow, that's crazy to me. I'm a long-time renter, so to wait for like a year and a half for a house, it just seems like, wow, that is difficult, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are some of the deal breakers for the buyers today?
Well, smell, for sure. That's a big one. If their houses are dirty, there are people, again, even though they know it can be cleaned, that they can clean it, it still is like, no. They also look how much, what's the price and how it's showing. Is it worth what they're asking for, right? Like, is it clean? Is it smelly? Is there lots of work that has to be done? Have they been looking after it so that I'm, comfortable, offering what they're asking? Is there a lot of work that I have to do? A lot of repairs I have to do?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is also like psychological in a way, because if you go to a house that's really dirty, you're just kind of thinking, well, if they can live in this dirty environment, God knows what kind of maintenance are they letting slide, kind of thing, right? And so a lot of times
Exactly.
people look at dirty house. I mean, normal dust, it's fine. But if you're seeing like trash all over the place, or they know there's open house coming, but there's a pile of dirty dishes in the sink, it just kind of makes you think like, what are some other home maintenance stuff that people are letting us slide? And so I think that triggers this kind of thing where people just be like, I don't even want to like put that into our choice, and then have to deal with maybe some of the surprises down the line.
Well, exactly. But the other thing too is like you only get one chance at making a great first impression, which is, people or houses. And buyers, when they walk in, if they start, oh, this is lovely, this is great, I love, the big foyer. But if they say, oh my gosh, look at that hole in the wall, then from that point on, they are looking to see what they can find wrong in every single room that they go into.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not looking for anything positive. They're looking for all the negative. Then you're trying to say, so what, do you like the house? And it's like, well, it needs this and it needs that. Well, there's got to be some positive things of the home. Now you've got to try and find something that's positive when all they're now looking for is the negative.
Right. Well, because also it's a large purchase. So they want to make sure they really get the bang of their buck. And so they're going to start looking for faults to kind of be like, should we buy this house? Maybe not. It's not as perfect as we want, or whatever it is that they're thinking.
That's why when we're asking the sellers, let's walk through the house. Let's make sure that things are fixed and repaired and cleaned and organized and all that type of stuff. Because then as the people are walking through, they're only getting positive feelings from it. But if from the moment they've walked in, that the smell hits them, and then everything is dirty and they're banging into everything, and it's just too overwhelming. Like when you did yours, it's just like I can't even see past any of it. I know it's not going to be here, but I can't even imagine, and it's just too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it is buyer psychology, and I know sellers are like, but whatever. But the thing is, I think it is really important, especially in a competitive market. You really want to put your best foot forward and then make sure, because I think a lot of sellers get freaked out about, I don't know, the overall things, they feel overwhelmed, or the economy is not doing well, or it's doing too well, et cetera, et cetera. Those are things you can't control. They're like the bigger picture stuff, but you can prepare your home for sale. I mean, those are the things you can have firm control on. How you present your home on the internet, how you photograph it, how you sell it, how you market it, how you stage it. So it's that the more preparation you do for your home in a very strategic way, it's really going to give you that return on investment.
Correct.
And how do buyers negotiate when it comes to the price of their home? Like, what are some of the common things that will make a buyer say, well, this will be a really good opportunity for us to ask for a lower sales price?
Well, if they're finding that even without a home inspection, if they're seeing that all the things that have to be fixed or repaired or replaced, they're looking at thousands. They don't say, oh, that'll cost $50. That's why, if things are broken, fix them. Because some people are not handy, right? They just look at it. It's like, I have to hire somebody to do all of this stuff. Whereas if you are somewhat handy and can, change the light bulbs so that all of them are working, that's not asking too much to have a light and it's clean and, so I think you have to, well, as you know, when you said that you're a buyer agent, you know what's happening in the neighborhood. You can say that this, what it sold for, what it looked like. And then they're able to say, well, if it sold for that and it looked great, well, this one, doesn't. How can I justify paying the same thing for something that I'm going to have to put in another $30,000 to make it look like that one?
Right. Yeah. I think it ultimately is to do as much preparation as you can so that the buyers will have less chance to say no on certain things.
Correct.
Because like you said, yeah, not everyone is very handy. Like I'm fairly handy. I know how to use power tools. I put up shelves and assemble IKEA furniture and, all that stuff. And I went on a date with this guy Or I was dating this guy who was like never even changed a light bulb in his life. I mean, he was making really good money, so he always had somebody who helped him to do it. And I was like so shocked. And
Yeah.
I was like, you never put up a bookshelf. He was like, no, never. I never had to. And I was
Hmm.
like, okay. But you just never know what kind of situations buyers are dealing with. And then the more things they feel like they had to fix for the house, for them, they're adding extra dollar sign that your listing price of what the true cost of the house might be. And,
Well, they're not. They're
like,
not adding
yeah,
it to the price. They're taking it off.
exactly. And so it's really important to make sure you do all the repairs or as much as you can before you go on the market.
Correct.
And do you see a different reaction with your buyers when they see a stage home versus a non-stage home?
Some of them will comment and say, "Oh, this is staged," and you sort of say, "Yes, it is." They can also tell if it's been staged well, but I haven't really heard anything negative about, "Oh, this is staged," or that it's a bad thing. People are getting to understand that being staged just means that the seller's taken the time to prepare it in the best possible light that they can. Not trying to pull any wool over your eyes, but why aren't they, there's so many things that they can do that is free for them to do or at little cost to make their property look good to the buyer. And then they know that it's worth the money that they're going to be offering.
Right.
People have to understand that everybody has $1 million property, right? So a $300,000 home for somebody is their $1 million property, right? Like that's the most I can afford. And even that I'm going to end up on macaroni and cheese for whatever, but that's their $1 million property. So it has to look to them like that's what they're going to want to spend their money on, and they're investing in on it. Or if it's $1 million, is my $1 million, am I going to give that person that amount of money for that house? Got to be worth it. That's my $1 million home.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing I think is interesting. I think for you as a buyer's agent, because you see the buyer's reaction immediately, how they are influenced by staging. Or do you not see, well, I guess my question would be is that do you see a buyer being influenced by the staging?
Well, in a lot of places that might have been vacant, if we've been looking at some new builds and then you've got some of the new builds that have furniture in it, it helps them be able to envision how to set up the space.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is too small. It'll never fit the bed or my dining room or whatever. By having it that way, then people can say, oh, you know what? My table's a little bigger, but yes, it's going to fit in here. So this one fits the queen bed. This is great, but there's lots of room here, and my king bed will fit in here. By staging it, they're able to start putting themselves into the space. They can envision themselves there. I can see living here like this. This feels like home. It warms up the space. It gives them that feeling that this is where I want to be.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is really important because I think a lot of times when you look at a vacant home, people don't really see the potential the house has. And like we talk about how some people are not very handy, some people are not very visual. So when they see a house, they can't see themselves living there. They don't have that imagination. Like when someone who is very familiar with design or reads a lot of interior design magazines do.
Well, exactly. And some people need, help on being able to say, well, what would I do with this space? Oh, well, this is what you can do with this space. And there's some designs that are, I staged a home years ago on this build, and it took me a while as a stager trying to figure out how am I supposed to stage this? So we staged it, and then people bought it. Then they moved all the staging to another house. So the new homeowners came, saw it vacant, and now they didn't want the house anymore because now they can't even figure out, like, this isn't what I want now that it's empty and there's no furniture here. I can't even imagine living here. So it does help people make decisions on saying, yeah, this is something I can aspire to, or this is what I'm looking for. This feels like home.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I can make it a home.
I totally agree with that because I feel like sometimes staging has this criticism that it's misleading for buyers or it's hiding something. But any good stager knows that it's unethical to do so. Like say if you have a giant hole in the ceiling and the stager somehow used something to cover it up, that is definitely not the right stager for you. Like that's not something that's ethical. And it's going to come out during disclosure anyway. So there's really no point. Because I have had sellers asking me, like, my foundation is really uneven here. Can you do something about that? And I'm kind of like, well, I'm not a magician, first of all. Like, I can't level your foundation by staging. It's physically impossible. And second of all, as a stager, I can't do that. This is unethical. Like, I can't physically hide a flaw in the house that actually can make an impact on your sale. Because I think foundation issue, especially, is definitely in that legal realm.
Oh, 100%.
But the thing is, I think staging is not misleading because it's really suggesting the lifestyle for the potential buyers. And like you, I have had deal with older homes where, for example, in San Francisco, in older, bigger homes, it was very common where they have a butler's entry next to the dining room, because that's where the servants would prepare the dish before they bring out to like a dinner party, right? But in modern times, we don't really use things like that. Like, so what do you do in that space? So in a way, staging is also kind of educating the buyers, like what can you do with this space, especially when there's a tricky floor plan or something that's left historically, like how do you deal with that as a modern person?
Yeah. Well, I find that staging, like as a professional stager and a licensed realtor, any suggestions that I'm making is to showcase the property in the best light. And that means that you're suggesting repairs that need to be done. And saying, can you, clean the windows, the light fixtures, the switch plates, the baseboards, show that the house is nice and clean. That's not misleading anybody, right? How are you misleading anybody? You've just asked them to clean something. Editing furniture so that the room looks bigger. That's not misleading anybody, because some people like the big bulky furniture, and it's realistically that's, you don't need a couch that big for that space. Setting up rooms so that people don't bang into the furniture or you can't open a closet door. You're not misleading anybody by making it so that when people are actually viewing the home, they can open the closet door, right? It's not, you can ask sellers to, can you cook with less strong odors, keep up with the litter boxes, make sure your backyard's cleaned up from any animal feces. It's not misleading anybody. We're just saying these are things that people are going to see. Look after them. Get them done before people come looking through the house here.
Exactly.
They don't want any surprises.
Yeah, it's really about presenting that best potential this house can have for this potential buyer.
Correct. It's correct. Right. And so staging, it's the proper way of staging is getting things cleaned, asking them to do repairs, and then just presenting the home in the best light so that that the seller can achieve the best price that they're hoping for, and that the buyer knows that what they're offering is worth what they're offering, right? Because the repairs have been done, because it's clean, because it looks like the homeowners have maintained it, because they've repaired all these different things and looked after the home.
Right. And in your opinion, what are some of the common mistakes home sellers make when they're selling their homes?
Well, sometimes they think that a buyer will see past stuff, and they have to remember that if you're expecting the buyer to see past it, then they're going to take that off of your price, right? They need to remember that the first impressions are the lasting impressions. Also, the sign on the lawn is a big thing. It's the easiest way for someone to know that your property is up for sale. And some people say, well, I don't want my neighbors to know. Well, if you're not letting people know that it's up for sale, how are you going to sell it? And then it could be a neighbor that has friends or family that want to move into the neighborhood. So that's the best way to let them know, is by having that on the lawn, right?
Right. I totally agree. Especially with the age of social media, you just never know like how the listing can be shared.
Yeah. And you always have to remember that while it's on the market, from the moment that, it's hitting MLS, that your staging has been done, it has to look that way all the time. You have to make sure your garbage is away and your beds are made and the toilet seat lids are down, and that, that your house presents perfectly every day.
Exactly. And so our hour is coming to a close. So I just have one question for you. What is the number one tip you'll give to the home seller when it comes to selling their homes?
I think the biggest one really is to work together as a team, like follow the plan that we're putting together, and then the selling process will run smoothly and it's less stressful for them as a seller, right? Everybody that's involved in the sale, including the seller, we're all wanting the same positive ending. We want the house sold, and we want it sold as quickly as possible, and we want the best return on it as well. And it's if everybody does their part and everyone listens to what everybody is saying, then I think that the homes sell well and with less stress.
That's great. Yeah, so thank you so much for being on the show. That wasn't too bad, right? So that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help and support the show, there are 3 ways to do so. You can leave a review and rating on iTunes. You can share the show on social media, or you can donate to support the maintaining costs for the podcast. You can make a donation through the show notes or on the sidebar of our site. If you haven't left a review on iTunes, please do so. This will help us grow the show and book more guests. If you have any questions, feedback, and suggestions, you can comment on the show notes. You can also find the show notes by going to stagemore.com/podcast. That's it. Have a fantastic week and happy staging.